Discover the incredible rescue that changed a mother parrot's life from a ferocious snake attack. On a cold, bitter autumn evening, under the glow of the dim porch light, Sarah stepped out, exhausted after another long shift at the Maplewood diner. The air was thick with the smell of fallen leaves and the promise of winter creeping in. But just as she reached for the door, a flash of color caught her eye. There, shivering against the wood, lay Bella, an injured parrot with feathers fluffed up protectively around her tiny chicks. Sarah felt her heart race. This little creature had narrowly escaped the jaws of danger, much like Sarah herself every day, fending off life's relentless pressures as a single mother to Mia and Noah. Carefully, Sarah scooped the parrot into her hands. The warmth of Bella's body felt like a spark of hope amidst her own struggles. She regarded the parrot's fierce spirit, its beak poised defiantly in the face of a world that tried to crush its will. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "I'll take care of you," feeling the weight of their shared burdens. As she cradled Bella home, Sarah was reminded that sometimes, it's the fragile who fight the hardest. Days turned into weeks, and with every drop of food and bit of care, Bella grew stronger, her beak clicking in joy each time Sarah approached with a fresh meal. Watching Bella nurture her chicks ignited a flicker of inspiration in Sarah. She saw the reflection of her own struggles in this little bird, casting shadows of doubt all around her yet finding strength to rise above it. But as Sarah balanced the demands of rearing 2 children, her financial worries grew heavier. Bills piled high as she found herself in a constant state of anxiety, scrimping and saving at every turn. One evening, Ted, the town's wealthy businessman with a knack for exploiting local treasures, caught wind of Bella's story. His predatory smile set off alarms in Sarah's gut as he sauntered into the diner, eyeing Bella as if she were a gold mine waiting to be uncovered. "Think of the profit, Sarah. This bird could be worth a fortune," he said, flashing a devious grin. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Ted's offer rang hollow in her ears. That wasn't what Bella represented. She was more than a commodity, she was hope, a testament of survival. In a moment of fierce determination, Sarah realized she wasn't just fighting for a bird, but for the heart of their community. The townspeople rallied behind her, their voices rising as they shared her story on social media, reminding everyone that Sarah's fierce love mirrored their own struggles. When the town meeting was called at the diner, Sarah stood before her neighbors, heart racing. She looked around, these were her friends, her family. "This isn't just about Bella," she cried out, voice shaking with passion. "It's about all of us. We have to choose community over profit." Tension crackled in the air, fear and anger collided, as they debated the very essence of what Maplewood stood for. Suddenly, Ted stood up, ready to drop a bombshell that could change everything. Sarah felt her heart drop, and the room held its breath, waiting for the reveal. Would they choose to protect Bella and each other? Or would the fear of the unknown push them into a corner? Every eye turned to Sarah, the weight of the moment pulsing with uncertainty. The stakes had never been higher. The diner fell silent as Ted cleared his throat, his smirk widening as he prepared to make his point. "I couldn't help but overhear your passionate plea," he said, his voice slick like oil. "But I've got news. Bella isn't just a parrot. She is a peculiar species demanded by exotic pet collectors. I could arrange a private buyer for her, one that would pay far above market value." His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The thought of Bella being taken, of losing this beacon of hope, sent shivers down Sarah's spine. She glanced at her neighbors, seeing the mix of excitement and fear reflected in their eyes. A few were genuinely tempted. What would their lives look like with a quick cash infusion? But those around her were not just value seekers. They had a bond with Bella and with each other, forged through shared struggles and triumphs. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing back the swell of panic rising in her chest. We cannot allow this to happen. Bella is one of us, she declared, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. She has survived against all odds, just like we have. Murmurs of agreement followed, but Ted's voice sliced through the supportive whispers like a knife. Being noble won't pay your bills or feed your children, Sarah. You know it as well as I do. His eyes glinted with challenge, eager to sow discord among them. At that moment, Sarah could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. The reality of her financial struggles clashed against her desire to protect Bella. What makes a life worth living? Money? She shot back. Or the connections we build with each other? Bella symbolizes hope. If we lose her, we lose a piece of what holds us together. A few heads nodded, but uncertainty lingered in the air. She could feel it seeping into her bones, fear of losing not only Bella but credibility within her community. The small-town gossip could tear her down. But defiance bubbled up within her. She wouldn't let Ted use their fears as bargaining chips. Maybe it's time we organized a fundraiser, Sarah suggested, her voice steadier now. If we gather our strengths as a community, if we chip in together, we can create awareness, start an online campaign. We can do this if we stand united. Slowly, a murmur of agreement spread through the diner. People whispered amongst themselves, exchanging hopeful glances. Ideas flew around the room, sparking energy and enthusiasm. The town's spirit ignited, and Sarah felt the warmth of their support surround her like a protective cocoon. But she knew it wouldn't be easy. Ted's eyes darkened as he watched the tide begin to turn. You think a little fundraiser will save you? I know power when I see it. I have connections that could crush your little community efforts and snatch Bella away before you even think to act. A chill ran through the crowd. The stakes skyrocketed, and Sarah's mind raced. As she looked around, she saw more than fear, she saw courage and determination. They were willing to fight for their own, to save Bella. But as she locked eyes with Ted, she knew this was just the beginning of a long, hard battle. Would her community resist Ted's greed? Did they have enough strength to overcome the weight of fear? A sense of urgency filled the room, and with that urgency came resolve. Silence fell again, but it felt different this time, not desperate, but simmering with hope. Sarah stood at the edge of a new path, ready to push against the current. As the meeting wrapped up, a decision hung impossibly in the balance. We'll fight for Bella, Sarah proclaimed, heart pounding. But in that moment, a shadow stirred just outside the window, a figure cloaked in darkness watching intently. Could this be someone aligned with Ted? Or an ally? The tension crackled as questions flooded Sarah's mind. What was this stranger's purpose? The door of the diner creaked, the sound magnified in the heavy silence. As the figure stepped closer to the glass, the light revealed a scruffy man with wild hair and a look that suggested he had seen more than his share of hard days. His hands were stuffed deep into the pockets of a ragged jacket, and he held himself like he was on the edge of something: fear, excitement, maybe even desperation. Who's that? A voice broke the tension, pulling everyone's attention. It was Greg, the town's handyman, his brows furrowed and lips pressed into a tight line. The stranger hesitated before taking another step forward, glancing at the rows of eyes that scrutinized him. Just a friend, he said, his voice rough yet somehow warm. Sarah squinted at him, trying to decipher if he was friend or foe. He didn't look like Ted's type, he didn't possess that slick, polished demeanor. But the uncertainty twisted her stomach. I just overheard what's going on, the man continued, his gaze darting to the window where Bella's cage sat safe for now. You're talking about that Parrot, right? A few heads nodded slowly, and Sarah felt the crowd tighten with renewed anxiety. What do you know about it? She asked, pushing away her own fear in the hope of finding clarity. He shifted uncomfortably, the weight of every word hanging in the air. I have encounters with bird traders. I know how they operate. He looked around, dropping his voice to a whisper, as if Ted was lurking outside waiting to pounce. If you plan to keep Bella, you need to protect her. There are dangers you haven't even considered. The murmurs began again, louder this time, and Sarah caught sight of Ted's eyes narrowing. "We need facts, not hollow threats," he interjected. "You don't know what you're talking about." The stranger locked eyes with Ted, his gaze unwavering. "You're wrong. I've seen parrots go missing, families torn apart when someone with money comes." "Isn't that right, TM?" the diner gasped. TM was a longtime local name associated with the illicit pet trade. A few patrons shifted uncomfortably, and Sarah felt the gravity of the situation deepen. "What the hell are you implying?" Ted snapped, his smirk fading into irritation. "I'm saying," the man asserted, "if you sit idle, Bella may become a commodity in someone else's hands." His sincerity shone through, a desperate plea for action. A hush fell over the room as disbelief washed over the faces of the townsfolk. But Sarah felt something awaken in her chest, a surge of purpose. "What do we do?" she whispered, her mind racing. "Fundraisers won't be enough," he insisted. "You'll need to create protection plans and build connections. Together, you can expose the darkness surrounding the trade." The walls seemed to close in on Sarah as doubt and determination wrestled for dominance in her heart. She was just an ordinary person. Could she really challenge something so vast and foreboding? Her thoughts drifted to Bella, who had fought for her life so many times. Surely, she owed her that much. Ted laughed sardonically, breaking the moment of silence. "You think some guy off the street can help you?" "You're all grasping at straws." But the stranger pressed on, his passion lighting the room. "You need to fight for more than just Bella. This is about your community, your future. People outside this town need to learn the value of what you stand for." The crowd was no longer merely an audience. They had become a collective force, slowly absorbing the truth being laid before them. Sarah looked at her neighbors. They nodded, determination returning to their faces. "Okay," she said, her voice steady now, "let us do this. Let us create a plan and spread the word." The stranger smiled, visibly impressed by her resolve. But just as hope seemed possible, a shout broke their unity. "Look!" someone cried, pointing towards the window where shadows seemed to grow darker. Caught off guard, Sarah turned to the source. A group of men had gathered, their eyes shining with contempt, closing in on the diner. Fear trickled down her spine. Were they affiliates of Ted, here to silence them? Would they sweep Bella away before they could act? As the weight of uncertainty pressed down like a storm cloud, Sarah felt the spark inside her ignite. "We won. Back down," she declared, her heart racing. "Not now." But outside, a sinister laugh echoed, daring them to try. How could they prepare for the incoming storm when it seemed they might already be too late? Sarah's heart pounded like a drum, each beat sinking with the tension in the room. The men outside shifted closer, shadows stretching as their intentions grew darker. She couldn't breathe, fear clawed at her throat, choking her resolve. "Don't let them in," she whispered urgently to the group. "We can't let them take Bella." Greg stepped forward, his face set, determination hardening his features. "We can barricade the door. We need time to think of a plan." The stranger nodded, urgency etched into his every line. "We can use the tables, push them against the door. We might buy ourselves some time." Together, they sprang into action. Chairs scraped against the diner's floor as they shoved tables in place, adrenaline fueling their movements. The laughter outside faded slightly, replaced by angry voices, raucous and drunk on confidence. "Who do they think they are?" Ted spat, his bravado wavering but still present. "This isn't the big city, they can't just push us around." Sarah shot him a look that begged for silence. "They can, and they will if we don't act." The stranger pressed his fingers against the window pane, trying to catch a glimpse of their adversaries. "We can't confront them head-on. They might have weapons." "We need to protect Bella first," she replied, her voice firm. "What do we do?" "I can help with that," the stranger said. "It's not just about staying here. There's an old barn on the outskirts of town. If we can get Bella there, she'll be safer." "Who is going to distract those men?" A voice quavered from the back. Delia, what if you turn off the lights? The stranger suggested quickly. When it gets dark, they'll have a harder time seeing in. You too, Greg, help her. Are you crazy? Ted blurted out. That'll just make us a target. Sometimes, you have to risk things to save what you love, Sarah interjected, searching the stranger's intense gaze for reassurance. With a heavy sigh, Ted relaxed a fraction. Fine. Whatever it takes to get that bird out of here. Delia and Greg moved to the lights, blinking the diner into sudden darkness. The shadows wrapped around them like a protective cloak, but every creak and groan of the building tightened the knot of fear in Sarah's stomach. Now? Greg's voice broke the silence as he counted down. On 3. 1, 2, 3. The moment Delia switched off the last light, shouts erupted outside, panicked and angry, cutting through the quiet like a knife. What the? Get that bird. Now or never, Sarah thought, racing toward Bella's cage. Her hands trembled as she unlatched the door, praying the bird would sense the urgency. Come on, Bella, we're getting you out of here. Darkness cloaked the diner like a blanket, but the energy shifted, filled with chaos and fear. The stranger stayed close, his hand on her shoulder, guiding her through the maze of tables. The glass door was a mere few feet away now, but shadows loomed just outside, taunting their bravado. Let us go. He urged, quickly following behind Sarah as she cradled Bella, the little parrot lighter than air. But just as they reached the door, the glimmer of a flashlight beam cut through, illuminating the path ahead like a spotlight on their urgency. Panic surged through her, and Sarah quickly thrust Bella deeper into her sweater, shielding her from the light. Stay close. Stay low. Before they could make a break for it, the door swung open violently, revealing figures cloaked in menace. Where do you think you're going? One of them sneered, stepping forward, his icy gaze locking onto Sarah. Desperation gripped her heart. She realized they weren't just fighting for Bella now, they were fighting for everything they cared about. Would they be able to manage a surprise? Run! The stranger yelled, pushing Sarah into action, as the group erupted into chaos. But she hesitated, fear clawing at the edges of her mind. They had mere seconds to react. Time hung heavy and still. Would they find escape, or would they fall into the hands of the very threat they had rallied to fight against? Sarah took a deep breath, courage boiling in her veins. Together, she whispered to the group, knowing that their united strength might be the only way out. Little did they know, a hidden truth lay beneath all this fear, one that could change everything. And outside, the sinister laugh echoed once more, promising a confrontation that would reveal whether they were truly ready to save Bella, and at what cost. With a sudden push, Sarah dashed forward, adrenaline propelling her into a blur of action. The stranger was at her side, keeping pace as they bolted for the door. In that split second, everything around them melted away, the clamor of the men outside, the shadows creeping towards them, and the weight of fear pressing down on her chest. It was just the two of them, united in a frantic race to save Bella. She felt the comforting weight of the parrot nestled against her body. We can do this, she murmured, more for her own reassurance than for Bella. The world seemed to grow narrower as they neared the exit, hope surged in her veins mixed with the pulse of terror. They burst through the door, and the chaos exploded behind them. Shadows lunged forward, shouts erupting like cannon fire. There they go! Get them! More than one set of footsteps thundered, and Sarah's heart raced even faster. The diner was their only momentary refuge, but it was time to embrace the darkness of the night. Anyone behind us? She shouted over her shoulder, glancing back to see the stranger shadowing her, determination etched on his face. Not yet. Just keep running. He yelled, urging her on. They navigated a narrow path between the tables, the air thick with the scent of grease and fear. More laughter, reckless and cold, flared up outside. It sent tremors through Sarah's body. They weren't just outnumbered, they were cornered. In a desperate surge of instinct, she turned toward the alleyway beside the diner, hoping it would obscure them from view. It plunged into shadows, a perfect hiding spot if only they could make it without being seen. Here. She flung herself in, dragging the stranger with her. They pressed against the wall, the rough texture scratching her arm. Breathing heavily, Sarah felt the world closing in, both a comforting embrace and a threatening trap. The sounds outside echoed, a cruel reminder of danger lurking close. "Do you think they saw us?" The stranger's eyes searched the darkness, tension radiating from him. I don't know." It felt like the walls were squeezing tighter, crushing her doubts but leaving fear intact. "There's a way out," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "We need to keep moving." Just then, the gang's laughter floated in again, filled with arrogance and malice. Sarah's stomach twisted. They needed a plan. "If we can get to the old barn, will we really be safe?" "I promise you," he assured her, his eyes serious. "I know where to go. But we have to time this perfectly." In the dim light of the alley, she caught a glimpse of his soft resolve. Trust formed a fragile bond between them. Sarah leaned in closer, hearing the distant shouts of the men plotting their next move, fueled by impatience and booze. They were ready for a fight, and they were still too close for comfort. "On three, okay?" "We'll dash for the street," he suggested, locking eyes with her. "Keep Bella close. Don't let go." "Right," Sarah replied, determination flaring within her like a flame igniting kindling. 1-2 His voice hovered in the air, heavy with anticipation, as they both tensed, ready to spring into action. 3. They broke from their hiding place, the alley swallowing them whole as they dashed toward the street. But just then, another shadow crossed their path, larger and more menacing than any of them had anticipated. "Gotcha," a voice sneered, echoing across the asphalt, as the realization hit hard. The confrontation they had been dreading had just taken a terrifying turn. Sarah stopped, feeling the chilling realization creep in. What now? The danger sang like an electric current beneath her skin. And as they faced the looming figure, a choice loomed larger than life before them: fight or flee. Would they stand together and face the trouble coming their way, or would they turn tail, putting everything at risk? The decision pressed like a weight against her chest, and she wasn't sure how they would escape unscathed this time. Sarah's mind raced, torn between fear and a fierce instinct to protect. The towering shadow before them shifted, the streetlights flickering, illuminating the sneer on the figure's face. She held her breath, the world narrowing to just that moment, her heart pounding like a drum. "Please," she whispered, as if the word alone could save them. "Let her go." The stranger shouted, taking a step forward, his posture defiantly brave. "Oh, how adorable," the figure taunted, a man with wild hair and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You think you're in charge here? You're just two lost little birds flapping around in a storm." His gang laughed behind him, a chilling chorus that sent shivers down her spine. "What's it gonna be?" he pressed, a flash of wicked glee in his eyes. "You can run or you can fight." Sarah's stomach churned. The weight of Bella pressed against her chest, warm and alive, the only comfort she had in a sea of uncertainty. The parrot chirped softly, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, and it gave Sarah a spark of courage. "Fight," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We fight. For Bella." "Exactly." The stranger pumped a fist and, unexpectedly, his passion seeped into her resolve. They had come this far, turning back now wasn't an option. "We can take him." Without waiting for another second, he charged toward the man, fists clenched, ready to defend the life they were trying so hard to protect. "Stop." The man's laughter morphed into a snarl, and an aura of chaos erupted around them. Sarah rushed forward, her thoughts blazing with urgency. She had never fought before, but everything inside her screamed to protect what mattered. As the two collided, shadows danced and the street felt alive with their desperation. She heard the scuffle, felt the vibrations of bodies crashing into each other, and she couldn't just stand there. Sarah spotted a broken slab of concrete nearby, anything to help. In an instinctive move, she grabbed it, her grip tightening as she approached the fight. Get away from him! She yelled, her voice cutting through the frenzy. The man turned, surprised, and in that split second, the stranger landed a punch, sending the first blow. It wasn't beautiful or strategic, it was raw and desperate. Now, he urged, locking eyes with her, hoping to coordinate their attack. With the concrete slab raised, she lunged in his direction, but the gang members advanced on her like wolves. One swiped at her, but she dodged, adrenaline pulsing in her veins. Time slowed, each heartbeat resonating with her purpose to save Bella. Keep going! The stranger shouted, his voice vibrant with determination. Never lose sight of her. She swung, aiming to distract the men, her heart racing, fear blending with hope. But still, they surged forward, emboldened by their numbers. She gasped as one of the men grabbed her arm, twisting it painfully. She felt helpless, and rage boiled within her. Let her go! The stranger yelled, but this time he was pinned down, outnumbered. In a surge of desperation, Sarah kicked out, connecting with the man's shin. He cursed, loosening his grip just enough for her to break free. The world expanded again, and she sprinted towards the stranger, a fierce battle-worn spirit igniting inside her. Together! She screamed, raising the broken slab as if to rally them both. But just as they gathered their resolve for one final push, a hollow laugh cut through the night air, filling their hearts with dread. You think you can win this? The man's voice boomed, dark and vicious. His gang closed in. You're outnumbered, and now, you're done. The tension broke like glass, and the enormity of the moment flooded over Sarah. They had to think quickly. But how? And as they readied themselves to face the staggering odds ahead, a final piece of hope flickered within them. Would they find a way through this chaos, or were they truly trapped in a storm that would consume them whole? The air was heavy, thick with the smell of asphalt and fear. Sarah could feel her pulse in her throat, matching the frantic rhythm of her thoughts. They were hopelessly outnumbered, and the laughter of the gang echoed around them like daggers. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of defiance ignited. Stay close! She shouted to the stranger, whose eyes shone with fierce bravery. He nodded, determination etched into his features as he pushed back against the weight of his opponent's eye. In that moment, Sarah's grip tightened on the concrete slab. She couldn't let Bella down. The parrot was counting on her. Instinct kicked in as she drew on every ounce of courage. They couldn't retreat. Fear gnawed at her, but so did the primal instinct to protect. With newfound resolve, she swung the slab again, this time aiming for the two men closing in on her. It wasn't pretty, but as the edge connected with flesh, a satisfying grunt of surprise escaped one of their throats. It gave her a brief swell of hope. Nice! The stranger yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. Keep going! We can't let them take her. Together, they plotted their next move as best they could under the frenetic energy of the moment. The gang members momentarily staggered, but they weren't done yet. You'll pay for that! One of them roared, eyes blazing with malign excitement. The stranger advanced bravely, but they collectively lunged for him, and Sarah felt the tide rolling against them once again. Doubt clawed its way back into her mind. They looked so fierce, so insatiable. But just as despair threatened to choke her courage, she thought of Bella's warmth against her chest, the way hope fluttered inside her with every desperate breath. Sarah! The stranger shouted, breaking her reverie. Get Bella ready. We need to protect her. In that split second, clarity broke like dawn over her worries. She needed to get Bella to safety. Without thinking, she turned and kneeled down, clutching the parrot close to her chest. I'm so sorry, Bella, she murmured, desperate to shield the little creature from danger. The world around her blurred, laughter now distant, the air filled with her heart's frantic beat. At that moment, the stranger's form became a shield between her and the chaos. He fought with the fury of a lion, launching himself at the nearest gang members. Blow after blow, he made a determined stand, drawing their attention away. Just a little more. He grunted, catching a punch aimed at his gut. I can hold them off. You need to get to the alley. Her heart raced as she evaluated the distance. The alley was only a few blocks down, still illuminated by flickering streetlights. To get there meant braving the gauntlet of angry faces, and yet, she felt an undeniable pull. Now. Go. He commanded, and with her heart hammering, she took that first step back, adrenaline fueling her flight. She could hear the chaos behind her, the shouts and muffled cries. But the thought of Bella made her run faster. She darted down the street, her breath coming in quick bursts, clutching the parrot close just as the night air nipped at her cheeks. The darkness felt different now, electric with anticipation, a hint of hope guiding every hurried stride. "Don't look back," she whispered to herself. "Just keep going." But the moment she glanced over her shoulder, her blood ran cold. The gang had turned their gaze, and their wicked laughter followed her like a shadow. They weren't just defending, they were hunting. With new resolve, she veered into the alley, her heart screaming for safety. But as she pressed forward, another scream echoed down the narrow passage. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was realization. "Sarah!" The stranger's voice broke through the cacophony, and her heart twisted within her. Would he make it out? She hesitated, torn between fleeing and turning back to help. The alley stretched ahead, dark and foreboding. Her heavy footsteps echoed, and uncertainty gnawed at her courage. Did she have any choice but to fight for more than just herself? And as the shadowy figures loomed closer, she faced the impossible decision: should she press on to secure their escape, or should she turn back to save the one brave soul who had stood up for them both? Her heart pounded in her chest as Sarah weighed her options. She could feel the moments slipping by, each second thick with tension. The alley walls seemed to close in around her, a suffocating reminder of the danger she faced. "Sarah!" The voice echoed again, desperation tinged with strength. It pulled at her like a lifeline. She couldn't abandon him. She wouldn't even as she clutched Bella close, she made her decision. "I'm coming," she shouted back, letting the fear fuel her determination. She spun around, racing back toward the chaos she had just fled. The sight was brutal. The stranger was still fighting, but now he was surrounded, his back against the cold, unforgiving wall. She could see anger and menace on the faces of the gang, a terrifying sight that sent chills down her spine. This was no longer just a fight, it was a trap, but there was no time to dwell on that. Sarah tightened her grip on the concrete slab and surged forward. She charged into the fray, fueled by a mix of adrenaline and the desperate need to help him. "Get back!" she yelled, swinging the makeshift weapon with surprising force. The impact caught one of the gang members off guard, staggering him back just long enough for the stranger to regain his footing. "Sarah, what are you thinking?" he exclaimed, eyes wide, a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "I can't leave you," she shouted back, her breath coming hard and fast. "We fight together." With renewed power coursing through her, they stood shoulder to shoulder, an odd but united front against the rising tide of enemies. The laughter of the gang was replaced by shouts of anger, and just for a moment, it felt like they might have a chance. But Sarah saw two more figures emerge from the shadows on the other side of the alley. Panic surged. "We need to get out of here," she urged, glancing around for any possible escape routes. It was then that they spotted a rusty fire escape ladder above them, nearly hidden in the gloom. "Up there!" she pointed, heart racing with hope. If they could make it, they might escape the impending danger. With quick, decisive movements, the stranger turned and climbed onto a barrel to reach the first rung, hoisting himself up. "Come on!" he called, extending his hand to her. "Bella," she hesitated, the parrot clutched tightly against her heart. "I can't leave her." The stranger looked down at the bird for a split second. "She'll be fine. You won't be if we don't hurry." His voice snapped her back to reality. As the gang surged closer, blood pumping, she shoved Bella into her jacket and grabbed the stranger's hand. He pulled her up fast, and she scrambled to follow. One last glance back showed the gang approaching, their faces twisted in fury. They were still outnumbered, but the fire escape was her chance. Each step up the ladder felt like freedom, but the fear of falling, of losing it all, weighed heavily on her chest. "Hurry!" she urged, climbing faster, each rung a desperate plea for safety. As she reached the top, Sarah turned to look at the street below, where chaos had erupted. The gang had split, some chasing them, others turning to look for new targets. But just when she thought they had made it out, a shout echoed. There! They're escaping! Her heart sank. They were still coming. Come on! The stranger yelled, pulling her further onto the rooftop. We need to get lost in the buildings. With every stride, a sense of grim hope burned. They were fighting back. Just as Sarah turned her head, a particularly loud and chilling laugh echoed from below, striking fear into her gut. Had they truly escaped? Or was this just the beginning? As they sprinted across the rooftops under the faint glow of distant streetlights, a new question lingered: what awaited them in the shadows of the night? The city sprawled out beneath them, a chaotic world filled with shadows and uncertainty. Sarah gasped for breath, her lungs burning as they ran. Each heavy footfall echoed in her ears, a reminder of their fragility. Keep moving, the stranger urged, his voice firm but not unkind. His grip remained steady, leading her through a maze of rooflines. Sarah stole a glance back. The gang had gathered below, their silhouettes mingling in the streetlight glow, a threatening mass of energy. Their laughter rang out, sharp and cruel, slicing through the night. Do they ever give up? She panted, her heart pounding with both fear and defiance. Not easily, he replied, looking over his shoulder as they reached a low wall. Without hesitating, he hopped over, and she followed, barely keeping pace. They landed on another roof, smaller and outlined with vents and ledges. Risking another look down, Sarah's heart raced anew at the sight of the gang dispersing, but it wasn't a sign of retreat. Instead, some scattered to the back alleys, taking shortcuts they didn't know existed. She felt the stranger's hand squeeze her shoulder reassuringly. Look. We need to split up. It'll be easier to find our way through the buildings if we don't stick together. I'll head east, you should go west. There's a fire escape on the far side of that building. He pointed, urgency filling his voice. I can't leave you, she protested, a wave of panic rising inside her chest. What if they'll be back on our tails in no time, and I'll draw them away? You have to trust me. He paused, catching her gaze. You can't help me if you're caught. Get to safety. Desperation clawed at her insides, but she knew. He was right. The fire escape was their best shot. Okay, be careful, she finally said, her voice tremoring with unsteady resolve. I will. With a final glance, he turned and sprinted toward the edge of the roof. Sarah felt her heart lurch like a pendulum, swinging between dread and hope. She quickly headed in the opposite direction. The distant sounds of laughter faded as she ducked behind a ventilation unit, pressing against the cool metal to steady her breath. She peered around the corner and saw the street below bathed in shadows and light, a battlefield of energy running hot. As she moved from one rooftop to the next, Sarah's senses heightened. Each gust of wind felt like a warning, every creak of the building beneath her reminiscent of footsteps. She clutched Bella tighter, her feathers soft against her skin, a reminder of safety amidst chaos. Finally, she spotted the fire escape, rusted but intact, hanging like a promise of salvation. She made a dash towards it, adrenaline keeping every nerve sharp and awake. Just as she reached for the ladder, a shout split the air. There she is! The gang's voices echoed from the other side of the building, their laughter returning with fierceness, hunting for her like wolves on a scent. Fear surged through her as her mind raced. If they found her, she could lose everything: her freedom, her life. Bella! Come on! You can do this! She whispered to herself, gripping the cold metal. In one swift motion, she climbed, urgency pushing her up each rung. As she reached the top, she paused. The height felt dizzying, and she could see the entire alley below swarming with gang members scanning the rooftops, thick shadows looming like storm clouds. Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest. But from this perch, she glimpsed a way forward, a connecting rooftop leading to another building. It was a chance. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. Before she could rethink anything, she bolted, running as fast as she could. But as she leaped across the gap, she heard the boom of footsteps behind her, the roar of anger. Would she make it to the next roof? Or would the shadows finally catch her? As Sarah launched into the air, adrenaline coursing through her veins, time seemed to stretch. The space between one building and another faded into nothingness. It was just her, Bella, and that desperate leap of faith. With a thud, her feet landed, barely keeping her balance as she stumbled but quickly righted herself. The roar of the gang echoed behind her, a cacophony of rage that ignited her survival instinct. "Run!" she shouted, urging her heart to keep pace with her feet. The night air wrapped around her like an invisible blanket, intensifying the heat of her fear while also fueling the fire of her determination. She could hear the distant shouts of her pursuers as they realized she'd escaped their grasp on the previous roof. "Don't look back," she whispered, focused on that dangerous pulse of hope beating in her chest. "Just keep going." With every sprint, every desperate leap, she felt an echoing heartbeat in sync with the rhythm of her lungs. Bella nestled closely within her jacket, producing quiet chirps that calmed her racing heart. "We're almost there, girl," Sarah murmured, channeling all the strength she could muster into their escape. She spotted a narrow alleyway leading down from the next rooftop. It wasn't far, but the uncertainty of who awaited her at the bottom gripped her tightly. Another leap propelled her forward, and Sarah landed, scraping her palms against the concrete. Wincing, she brushed it off. The small pain was nothing compared to the overwhelming need for safety. Once in the alley, she glanced back for the first time. The figures loomed closer, shadows darting between buildings. Anxiety gripped her insides, a gnawing reminder that she needed a plan. Glancing left, then right, she spotted a door slightly ajar at the far end of the alley. Hope flickered anew. "Come on," she urged Bella, feeling more like a mother than a fighter now. Sarah darted toward the door, flinging it open just as another shout emerged from behind, a challenge that sent her heart racing faster. Inside, dim light illuminated dusty crates and old paintings. It felt eerie, yet it offered sanctuary. "Please, let it be safe," she breathed, momentarily resting her back against the heavy door. Her chest lifted with shudders of anxiety, but amidst all that turbulence, Bella's soft chirp grounded her. Suddenly, a banging filled the air as the shadowy pursuers reached the alley. "She has to be in there," one of them yelled, furious determination evident in his voice. Sarah's breath hitched. They were moments away from discovering her hiding spot. As if sensing the urgency, Bella rustled within Sarah's grasp, her instinct kicking in. "Shoo, Bella. I need you to be quiet," she whispered, swallowing her own fear. Just then, Sarah heard footsteps retreating, confusion drifting through the air. Rounding the corner into the adjacent room, she peered through a small window. Below, the gang was now scattered, arguing amongst themselves, trying to piece together where she'd vanished. It was a momentary reprieve, but she knew it wouldn't last. Beside her, another door led further into the unknown. Taking a deep breath, she hesitated for only a moment before moving forward. "It's now or never," she resolved, gripping Bella securely before pushing through into the next space. What greeted her was a corkscrew staircase spiraling down, bathed in muted light. It felt like a leap into the unknown, but any direction was better than the chaos outside. With rapid strides, Sarah descended, feeling a sense of urgency coursing through her veins. Just then, Bella fluffed her feathers, her presence igniting the flame of hope within Sarah's chest once again. Each step away from danger felt like a step toward the light. Finally, she reached the bottom, and the air shifted. A familiar sound met her ears, the gentle rush of water. As she emerged outside through another door, the moonlight reflected off the surface of a small creek. Relief flooded through her. The waters could wash away their tracks. The team had a good chance to cross unseen. "Bella, we're so close," she breathed as she ran along the creek's edge, the cool water brushing against her feet. Each rippling sound created a harmony of hope. Then, from across the water, she spotted a bridge, rickety and old, but still standing. Her pulse quickened as she eyed it. As she approached the bridge, the frantic shouts of the gang resurfaced, the echoes of their anger mingling with her determination. "I won't let you go," she screamed internally, the fire in her heart mimicking her fierce resolve. Amid the chaos of her surroundings, she felt herself shift. No longer a scared girl hoping to escape, she became a brave mother fighting for her future. "Together, Bella," she said again, ready to take that leap onto the rickety bridge, towards a new chapter that awaited them. But just as she stepped onto the bridge, the sounds behind her amplified heavy footsteps, angry shouts. "We are coming for you." "Not today, you won't," Sarah roared, finding strength she never knew she had. With all the power in her body, she sprinted across the bridge, Bella tucked safe against her heart, and as she reached the other side, she couldn't help but look back just once more. The shadowy figures froze, glancing at one another in disbelief as she crossed the threshold. "This is a fight you can't win," she shouted with defiance echoing in her voice. The road ahead awaited them, a path of hope, of survival, and Sarah could feel the warmth of community swirling around her. The realization hit her, this was not just about saving Bella. It was a rebirth transcending fear, fighting for family, and discovering the strength that lay within. As she vanished from sight, the moon washed over her, the last beacon of doubt fading behind her into the night. And in that silent moment, where hope intertwined with freedom, something deep inside stirred. Sarah had found her voice, and she knew this was just the beginning. Now, she would fight. Fighting for Bella meant fighting for her family and for a community that had rallied around them both. So here's the call to action you need right now. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss this powerful transformation. Leave a like now to boost this story out to more hearts needing hope. Comment below with your own journey of strength and resilience. This is the moment to share. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need this spark of inspiration in their lives today. We are all in this together. Your support matters.